requiring the Trump administration to facilitate the release of a Maryland man who was mistakenly deported to a prison in El Salvador. Kilmore Albreo Garcia had an immigration court order preventing his deportation from the country amid fears that he could be harmed by gang members. But last month, ICE officials removed him anyway from the United States, claiming that he was a member of MS-13. The man was never charged or convicted of any crime. The Trump administration later admitted they made a mistake, but argued they couldn't do anything about it. Now, in another I think extremely important unanimous order, the Supreme Court has told the White House to take steps necessary to release Garcia from custody and, quote, ensure that his case is handled as it would have been had he not been improperly sent to El Salvador. The ruling stopped short of ordering the man's return to the United States. His case, however, must go to a trial court, though it's not clear when that's going to happen. Let's bring Msnbc and NBC News legal analyst Danny Cevallos. You know, Danny, we've had so much thrown at us over the first 3 months of the administration. And as we've said, I know as you've said, so many other people have said, it's been intentional on the administration's part to flood the zone, to keep things coming, to see where the court bites, to see where the court doesn't bite. I think, Danny, and others I've spoken with believe that have covered this White House closely and Washington for a very long time, that two of the most important things that have happened over the last 3 months, at least from the judicial branch, came from the Supreme Court this past week. A 9-0 ruling that Brett Kavanaugh signed, where all 9 justices agreed, whether they were whatever side they were on the issue, that you can't just deport, whether you call them Venezuelan gang members or whoever you call them. You just can't deport somebody. They have to be given proper notice, and they have to be given due process in front of a judge. That is an extraordinarily clarifying opinion, and all 9 justices agreed with that part of the opinion. The second thing happened last night, and that was the return of Garcia, saying they have to facilitate the return of Garcia. And again, this wasn't 5-4. I must say, I expected this to be a 5-4 decision. I was that cynical. But once again, unsigned, which means 9-0. So talk about the impact of this decision last night in particular, but the two taken together this week and what it means.
Yeah, let's start with the decision last night. The order is a win for the Trump administration, and at least that's how they're going to play it. Here's what I mean. A real win for Garcia would have been an order that says, hey, administration, I hear the Salvadorian president's going to be here Monday. Put Garcia on the plane, seated next to him in a reclining seat, and he better be here Monday with the president. That would have been a clear win. The reason I say this, the administration is going to call this a win, is there's a lot of space, a lot of loophole potential in this order. Consider this. One of the lines that we put up there on the screen was that the court ordered him to be returned, or excuse me, to facilitate his return so his case could be handled as if it was properly handled. Remember, the 2019 order for Garcia by an immigration judge just really prevented his return to El Salvador. In theory, any of the other 193 countries out there might be perfectly all right. And if his case was handled the way it should have been, that could still result in his removal. And then there's even bigger wiggle room for the administration in the language with one word: effectuate. Yes, the lower court's order remains in place. The administration has to effectuate his return, but the court has to clarify, what does it mean by effectuate? I guarantee you, and here I am saying it now, the administration is going to say that whatever the district court clarifies effectuate means, the administration is going to say, well, guess what? We say you don't have the power to order us to do that because you're essentially ordering us to engage in international relations, which you, an Article III court, another branch of the government cannot order us to do. And we're going to be right back here where we were this last week as this goes back up through the courts. I will just say, Joe, you're exactly right. Taken together, the two Supreme Court cases over the last week or so do stand for the idea that people subject to removal are entitled to due process. But sometimes even due process can be relatively hollow, because as long as they give them that notice and as long as they give them that hearing, arguably these folks can still be removed. So yes, a win for due process, but I promise you, hear me now, the administration will call this a win for themselves, or at least that's how they'll play their hand.
Right. Well, I mean, Claire McCaskill, I don't think anybody is arguing that if people are here illegally,